My name is Emily Parker, and I've always believed that kindness can change a life, sometimes even two. I never imagined that renting out the small house behind mine would lead to one of the most transformative chapters of my life. It began during a cold autumn morning in Maple Springs, a quiet suburban town where everyone knew everyone, or so I thought. I had inherited my parents' property, a two-story home with a small guest house at the back. After my husband passed away 3 years ago, I found myself living alone, managing the place as best as I could. The extra income from the guest house helped pay the bills, but more than that, it made me feel like I still had a purpose, someone to look after, in a way. One rainy afternoon, a young man came by after seeing my "For Rent" sign. His name was Michael Reed. He was in his early 30s, polite, with kind eyes but a weary face that looked like life had been testing him for a while. He told me he worked as a mechanic at a local garage and had recently lost his apartment after his roommate skipped out on rent. He apologized repeatedly for his situation, his voice heavy with embarrassment. Something about his sincerity struck me. I didn't ask for references or push for deposits right away. Instead, I handed him the keys and said, "Let's call it a trial month. Pay me when you can." He looked stunned. "Ma'am, I don't want charity," he said softly. "It's not charity," I replied. "It's a hand when someone needs it." That moment was the beginning of a friendship that neither of us expected. In the first few weeks, Michael kept mostly to himself. He paid a small portion of the rent, left envelopes on my porch every Friday, and fixed little things around my property without being asked. A creaky porch step, a leaky garden hose, even my old mailbox that had been falling apart for months. As Thanksgiving approached, I decided to invite him for dinner. At first, he declined. "I don't want to intrude," he said. But when he saw the single table setting in my dining room, he changed his mind. That night, as we shared roasted turkey and mashed potatoes, he opened up. He told me about losing his father at a young age, how his mother raised him and his sister alone, and how he'd dropped out of college to support them when she fell ill. He'd always wanted to start his own auto repair business but never had the means. His humility and determination touched me deeply. "You know," I said, "you remind me of my husband. He started small too, just one broken down car at a time." Michael smiled for the first time that evening. "Maybe someday I'll have that kind of chance," he said. A few weeks later, that chance arrived, though neither of us could have predicted it. One morning, my car wouldn't start. I was frustrated because I had an important meeting at the local library where I volunteered. Without hesitation, Michael came over, tools in hand. Within minutes, he diagnosed the issue, a bad starter motor, and replaced it with one he had in his old toolbox. When I tried to pay him, he refused. "Consider it part of the rent," he said with a grin. That's when an idea began forming in my mind, one that could change both our lives. I had some savings from my husband's life insurance that I hadn't touched in years. It was meant for something meaningful, not for luxury or comfort, but for impact. So, one afternoon, I called Michael over and made him an offer. "What if we partnered?" I asked. He blinked. "Partnered? In what?" "In your dream," I said simply. "An auto repair shop. You've got the skill and the heart for it. I've got a little capital and an empty storage unit that's been collecting dust. What do you think?" He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." For the next few weeks, we turned my late husband's old storage space into a modest repair shop. Michael handled the mechanical work, while I helped with paperwork, bookkeeping, and customer service. We put up a small hand-painted sign that read, "Maple Springs Auto Care, honest work, fair prices." At first, business was slow. But word spread quickly about the hard-working mechanic who treated every customer like family. People loved his honesty. Before long, cars lined up along the street. Even the mayor brought his truck in for repairs. Seeing Michael's pride as he worked made me realize that my husband would have approved. He always believed in lifting others up, and that belief was living on through this project. One evening, as we closed up shop, Michael turned to me. "Emily," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you didn't just give me a business. You gave me back my dignity. I can't ever thank you enough." I smiled and said, "Just promise me you'll pay it forward one day." He nodded. "That's a promise." Months passed, and the business flourished. Michael eventually hired his younger sister, Lena, to manage scheduling and finances. I watched as their small dream grew into a thriving community space, a place where people trusted not just the repairs but the hearts behind them. Then, one day, an unexpected letter arrived. It was from a local youth center. They wanted to collaborate on a workshop teaching basic car maintenance to underprivileged teens. Michael jumped at the opportunity. We spent weekends mentoring kids, showing them how engines worked, how to change oil, how to fix a flat. But more importantly, Michael taught them what no textbook could: resilience, patience, and the value of honest work. One of the kids, a 17-year-old named Darren, said after class, "I didn't think people like you cared about guys like me." Michael smiled and replied, "Someone cared about me when I didn't deserve it. Now it's my turn." That night, I sat in my living room and thought about how far we had come, from a struggling tenant to a community leader. Tears filled my eyes, but they weren't from sadness. They were from pride. 2 years later, Maple Springs Auto Care became one of the town's most trusted small businesses. Michael eventually bought the guest house from me, and we became neighbors, partners not in business anymore, but in purpose. Every year on Thanksgiving, we still share dinner, sometimes with the kids from the workshop, sometimes with families we've helped. Michael always says a toast that never fails to make me emotional. To second chances, he says. And to the people who believe in us when we can't believe in ourselves. I always raise my glass and whisper back, to kindness, the real engine of life. And that's the story of how helping one struggling tenant not only changed his life, but gave mine a new meaning.